This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Tell you, it's amazing how fun the NBA is when the tanking teams are out of it. Last night was awesome as we tipped off the postseason with a tremendous start to the play-in games. Speaking of tanking teams, though, can we potentially capitalize on a similar thought process in the NHL today? That's something we'll discuss a little bit later on in the show as we welcome you into Money Moves. I'm Stormy Buonantony. He's JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel. We're live as always in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Oh, and by the way, as we have a wonderful night to recap and get into pushing all of that forward, we also have live baseball in action right now as we get things started.
Yeah, 3 games that are underway. One personally that I'm interested in, Arizona Diamondbacks on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. For me, this might surprise some people who watch the show, fantasy perspective, but also from a curiosity standpoint. Can Eduardo Rodriguez keep it up? Right now, he's doing a pretty admirable job. Through 4 so far for Rodriguez. 4 hits, 2 earned runs. He's walked 4, so the command's a little shaky today. He struck out 2. Again, admirable, I think, is the term for today. But for those who don't know, Rodriguez off to a dynamite start. Came in with an ERA of 0.5 and 11 strikeouts. Has been doing a pretty decent job since going back to the World Baseball Classic. So I am very curious to see if he can keep this thing up. Market said that maybe. You saw Bradish open up as like a $1.50 favorite in some spots. Circa opened up at minus 160 in favor of Baltimore. We got back down to about minus 130, which I thought was fair. So big line move there. And the other, as the Twins are up now, as they just got there, 1-0 top of the second inning over the Boston Red Sox. The Minnesota Twins have been an incredible story so far. I don't know how much you've tracked of what's going on in the American League, but this is your top team in the American League from a record standpoint. And if you remember, and I think you do too, I've got a win total on the under for the Minnesota Twins. Here they are at 11-7. So I would very much like them to lose this game, but they are off to a great start. And then finally a 1-1 draw so far, bottom of the second inning between the Cardinals and the Guardians. Yeah, that was essentially a pick'em game. With it even being tied so early in the game, the way that St. Louis has started this thing and the situation they're in, minus 145 right now live, total 9.5 off of what closed ultimately 9. Okay, we will keep tabs on all of that as we go throughout the course of the next 2 hours. Plenty of Major League Baseball also that we'll dive into for the late afternoon and evening slate. But let's set the table with everything else we have to come here on the program. Time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
I'm really excited for our guest list today, JVT, beginning in just under 15 minutes. VSiN's own Matt Brown is going to join us to talk a little golf, preview the RBC Heritage that's going to get underway tomorrow. We'll also have Chad Reuter of NFL Media, end of the hour, to break down the NFL draft and some of the movement we've seen there. We talked about it a little bit yesterday with the way that over, under 1.5 quarterbacks odds have shifted. And, of course, plenty of NBA on deck with 2 more play-in games coming up tonight. Noops Christensen of FTN Network going to join us.
Yeah, all 3. Can't wait to talk to him. Chad specifically, as we get a little bit closer to the NFL draft, right around the corner, just over a week away. And again, somewhat buzzless, but still, we're seeing a lot of movement in a lot of these markets. Got to talk about the quarterbacks. That was a story for us yesterday. Yep. For those who haven't been keeping track, and I'm sure by this point you've heard it, but that is now minus 120 to the over, minus 110 to the under over at DraftKings for total quarterbacks of the first round. So for some reason, over the last 48 hours or so, the market has said, no, we're in on under 1.5. So we'll see if maybe Chad has some insight as to maybe why that would be.
Also, you'll like this. It is the penultimate night in the National Hockey League. After the results yesterday, the Eastern Conference first round is officially set. I'll tell you one series bet I already have in pocket. Ooh. Looking ahead to the 6 games we have on deck today, Vegas has an opportunity finally to clinch the Pacific Division today. Edmonton, meanwhile, has the widest range of potential outcomes. They could still either, JVT, finish first, second, or third in the Pacific Division, or be the second wild card spot. So that among a handful of other seeding things in the Western Conference to be determined tonight and tomorrow.
You know what they say? Crack kills, baby. Let's go Seattle. Get this done. Beat the Vegas Golden Knights and allow my Edmonton Oilers to get this thing done and win this division. Do I get credit and also blame for yesterday as well? Carolina pulled it off against the New York Islanders.
Colorado Avalanche, however.
They beat the Calgary Flames. Yeah. So, hey, if you bet them both, you came out on top, right? So
yes,
I think that does
true.
matter.
You did. I was texting you. I was like, hey, look at them. They're getting to go. Did you play it? You said no.
I bet Calgary last night while I was sitting around watching the basketball game. I was like, I need some action later tonight. And Calgary did not get it done. It was 1-1 going into the third. I thought they had a shot, but ultimately they let go of the rope.
We will recap our bets, of course, from yesterday later on in the program. 2-2 for me yesterday on the ice. a lot of frustration having watched those Pacific Division teams.
You're watching?
Yes, sadly. I don't know why. I probably should not have.
There was only one thing that was center stage yesterday, Stormy. What was it?
And that's true, ladies and gentlemen, which is where we will begin. Talking NBA play-in, a couple of fantastic finishes last night. But, of course, we're going to start with the star of the show, or as Bill Simmons put it, the drunk game of the night, as our beloved Charlotte Hornets somehow pulled it off and beat the Miami Heat in overtime yesterday. 127-126 final, despite trailing with 15 seconds to go in both the final seconds of the fourth quarter and in overtime. Heat do cover any number, 5.5, 6, depending on where it closed. Total goes over. But Charlotte wins and advances. They get out of this thing in what was a very, very chaotic game.
Yeah, so we were walking in together, and you asked me, because I was on with our friends on VSiN by the Book, if I had said anything, and I never really say anything notable, but I will say the one point that I made when they asked me about this game that I think is good going forward is that Charlotte, a team that had really no playoff experience, no high leverage game experience whatsoever outside of Kobe White being a play-in stalwart, this team answered the call at every moment they needed it. Speaking of Kobe White, the fact that they draw up that play and he can get that three to tie the game at the end of regulation.
That far side three off the inbound was a thing of beauty.
It was incredible. And so they answer there. And then at the end of the game where it looks like you're going to blow it, where LaMelo pulls a boozer, we'll call it, as he turns the ball over at half court, then subsequently fouls Tyler Hero on a three-point shot that gives them a 1-point lead. But then to have the Onions to go and get a layup that ultimately wins the game for you, to block a shot at the rim to end it and win it at the end of overtime. How many times did we see them kind of, all right, like the Heat are pulling away again, and we're going to get back into it. Oh, the Heat are pulling away again, and we're going to get back into it. We're going to blow it. We're going to pull away a little bit, then we're going to blow that lead. I thought it was a very good sign for them to respond the way they did for a team that really lacked any semblance of playoff experience. And they did it, and they got a win, and now you get to see who you're going to play, whoever loses this game coming up tonight.
And on a night, too, where the shooting really wasn't there. Bad day to have a bad day if you're Con Knippel, who obviously is the NBA's leader in three-point shots made this year.
Got benched.
He gets benched. He and LaMelo Ball, JVT, were a combined 4 of 28 from three. Yep. And for that to be what happened with two of your key shooters and still find a way to get back into it, they were missing. There was a stretch of this game, and I think if you're just box score reviewing this morning, that it doesn't really do justice to the stretch of them throwing up all these threes, missing them, not being able to get the offensive board, and then Miami scoring on the other side. Like, there was a stretch of this game in the second half where it was just brutal.
Yeah, it was. Oh, and that's why. So I think it was Tim McMahon who said it on ESPN. It was actually a great one. He called LaMelo Ball an arsonist and a firefighter. So, you're setting your team up for failure so many different ways, but then also at the same time, one of the key reasons why you were able to win this game, and we'll get the ball and the interaction with Bam Adebayo. I think the other guy that deserves a ton of credit in a game like this, Moussa Diabate was great. He had 14 rebounds in the game, 8 of them, though, on the offensive end, and that was something we had talked about, and the good point made on the broadcast, and when you watch this team, they're a team that takes so many threes, and there is the variance of that. When I was actually in the parking garage yesterday, I sent a text, because Kelly and I were talking about this, and it was along the lines of, I just have this feeling that the Heat are going to win by 2 and the Hornets are going to shoot like 19% on 53s. And it was almost that. Like, it was almost exactly what you thought. But Diabate with the offensive rebounds, they're not putbacks. They're kick out to open shooters. They're hitting some of those open shots when at least they can. And while Ball did not have a good night, Miles Bridges was 5 of 10 from three-point range. Kobe White was 5 of 8 from three-point range. And that made a difference. We should note Brandon Miller with a bunch of big threes, too. And that ultimately made the difference for this team because they were great in terms of just total volume from beyond the arc. That was a good day for them, at least in terms of actual makes.
Diabate injured his hip late in the game, and I was a little bit nervous about what that might mean. Thankfully, he was able to come back in and finish this thing. Speaking of injuries, though, you mentioned it. Bam Adebayo goes down in the second quarter. LaMelo Ball with the trip sweeping motion of his arm. Cue several sportsbooks, by the way, injury forgiveness on Bam Adebayo. It was not looked at on the court. Nothing was reviewed. Nothing was called on the court either. Here is Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra after the game.
I didn't see it, but I don't think it's cute. I don't think it's funny. I think it's a stupid play. It's a dangerous play. Obviously, our best player is out. I'm not making an excuse. The Hornets played great, and they made those plays down the stretch. We had our opportunities to win. I just, that's a shame. He should be penalized for that. I don't think that belongs in the game, tripping guys, shenanigans. And, Curtis was there. It's his responsibility to see that. And if it's not his responsibility, then Zach's got to see it. If, somebody has got to see that, and that, he should have been thrown out of the game, for that. I don't know him from, anyone. There's no place in the game for that. Obviously, it took Bam out of the game.
I don't think we have time here to play the LaMelo Ball side of it either after the game, but he said post-game, he got hit on the head and he was all out of sorts. He didn't see it. What do you think?
And then he was asked, well, were you checked for a concussion? If you're alleging that you got hit to the point where you didn't know where you were, and he's like, no, I've actually never been checked for a concussion. I don't know what that's like. Yeah, look, he got frustrated and he swiped. I don't think the intent was to hurt Bam Adebayo or take him down, but the result was that he did it. The rule is that because play continued and they went up and down the floor, that you can't just go back then and retroactively assess the play assigned. He'll probably get a flagrant 2, and he'll get the 2 points for it, and he'll probably get fined. But a lot of people are throwing out that he'll be suspended for the game on Friday. I would say that it's a decent-sized favorite that the will LaMelo Ball be suspended? No, is probably favored. The
Trailblazers also ended up upsetting the Suns last night, 114-110. Line moved against Phoenix and was correct, with the Blazers blazing their way back despite being down double digits late in this game. Total goes over in it. Shout out Denny Avdia, 41 as they erase that deficit. They'll face the Spurs in the first round. San Antonio, big favorite early, minus 2,000 on the series price. Portland available at 10-1. Game 1 coming up on Sunday. Okay, we got to step aside here. Do want to remind you, though, as we talk about the NBA, we, of course, have all of the Opta AI projections available for free right now on VSiN.com. You can also get unlimited access to the betting splits to see where the money is going for the 2 play-in games we have coming up tonight and beyond. VSiN.com is where you can check it out. Matt Brown next on the RBC Heritage.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We know the sports calendar never stops, and the Sharp Plays is covering it all. All of the results documented, logs posted publicly over at sharpplays.com, and we know that kind of transparency can be rare in the industry. When the Sharp Plays moves, the sports books take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel, they find the value before the numbers shift. Start winning at sharpplays.com. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here in downtown Las Vegas. Money Moves, VSiN, the sports betting network. Excited to get into a little golf here. The RBC Heritage over there at Harbor Town getting underway tomorrow. And help us break it all down, Matt Brown joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, host of Long Shots. You can get wherever you download your podcast. Of course, the YouTube channel as well. Host of Ready, Set, Bet on the weekends. And Matt, this weekend, no Rory because he's taking a little bit of rest. The post-Masters victory lap as well. Scotty Scheffler, our favorite after the late surge at the Masters. You excited for this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, to see how some of these guys kind of bounce back more than anything else. I mean, we'll go ahead and get it out of the way now. Like, I'm not on Cam Young. I'm not on Sam Burns. Like, these guys that could have been there. I mean, I think both of them have to, woken up on Monday morning realizing that they could have been the one that were slipping on the green jacket and just didn't go get it. Even Russell Henley, a guy that models really well for me, I don't have any exposure to as we sit right now. I just do want, of all the tournaments where I actually am kind of worried about some sort of mental hangover, I think that the Masters, which is this tournament every golfer dreams of winning, slipping on the green jacket at Augusta and all of that, and knowing that it was there for the taking. I mean, no offense to Rory. He held on and he won when he didn't have his best stuff, but the tournament was there for the taking on Sunday and nobody went and got it. And especially the guys that really kind of fumbled the ball, I am taking them off this week.
I prefer the plaid jacket personally, but that's a personal choice in terms of fashion. All right, let me ask you this. As we're looking at this course just in general, I like to ask you guys this. So what are you looking at in terms of golfers? What are you weighing in your model that you have put together? What statistics do you weight the most here at the RBC Heritage?
Yeah, so completely different from what we did last week, where so heavily into distance, so heavily into long iron stuff and things like that, because Augusta is just so incredibly long and is demanding off of the tee. It is demanding on some of those longer second shots, where that's not really not going to be the case here. Over at Harbor Town, you're going to be really looking at dudes that are trying to hit the fairway as much as humanly possible. And it's not necessarily because the rough is super penal, as it is that you just get in really bad angles. You get bad shots into the green. There's trees that'll be hanging over, blocking sight lines and different things like that. And so it's not necessarily that the rough is so bad. Actually, if you kind of look at the rough penalty, it's not terrible, but more times than not, if you are wayward off the tee, you're just going to find yourself in a spot where you can't do anything with the second shot. So really like good drives for me. However you want to do, there's other sites out there that do distance from the edge of the fairway, however you want to go about it, but that's some sort of form of not spraying it. And then just maybe one of the most heavy approach weeks that we have on tour. These are very small greens. They're hard to hold. They might be even harder to hold this year. There was a renovation to this course last year in which rumor has it that they were trying to make the greens firmer and faster and all of that. And so approach play going to be even more in this one, and then just around the greens and scrambling and stuff like that, because if you're not holding these greens, then you're going to need to be getting up and down on those. And so really kind of a boring, simple model this week, if you will, but I think still one that the stats really super important. I know a lot of people are going to look, and a lot of the scoring does come on par fives here and try to factor that into their model, but I actually think that's not going to be in play. I actually think the par five scoring really fits the other buckets of the stuff that we're fitting in anyway, because you can't hold these greens. And so people aren't going to be going for it in two. So it's really just iron play after that anyway. Or if they do go for it in two, it's probably not going to hold the green anyway. So it's like scrambling and around the green type of stuff. And so those fall into the other buckets and not necessarily in par five scoring.
VSiN host and golf betting analyst Matt Brown joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. And with that, so I know you mentioned a couple of guys that you're staying away from because of the mental state. There is one guy that I would imagine probably in a pretty positive mental state for the way he was able to get back into this thing, Xander Schauffele. He has had great form down the stretch. I had him in an outright in the top 10 last week. He's able to get in with the T9 there late. Is he somebody we should be backing once again moving forward?
Yeah, so backdoors into the top 10, but that's kind of what Xander just does at all these majors. If you look up and you're just like, he puts together a few boring rounds, and then he puts together a 68 on Sunday and sneaks into the top 10, which is exactly what we got out of him this past week. I think he's rounding into form. I bet him. I took him on the outright market for this one, 15-1 out there. And if you look at where he's really trending, the iron play has been absolutely spectacular. We just talked about how important I think that is for this week. And honestly, he was just plagued by a lot of injuries last year, and I think he seems to be finally over all of that. And I'm going to take a guy who's literally just scorching hot with the irons right now. And yeah, he's gotten longer off the tee. We just said that doesn't really come into play, but I still think that with what he does off the tee, even with whether he's going to play a mini driver this week or hitting 3-wood or 5-wood or whatever it is off the tee, long iron, stuff like that, he'll still be able to get there with those mid to long-ish irons, and it's going to be better than the rest of the field. And kind of that's where I think Xander's going to separate here. And I really like him this week. Obviously, it's hard not to like Scotty after the way Scotty finished last week, but if anyone can go and really go kind of toe for toe with Scotty in this field, I think that Xander's the guy.
What about Jordan Spieth? I believe he won here in 2022. You'd be able to correct me there, but Spieth has a pretty strong history here, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I can't believe, man, I don't know if I've played Jordan Spieth in a couple of years at least or something, but Jordan Spieth is like my model darling this week. I mean, every version of everything that I ran, Jordan Spieth is inside the top 7 in all of those, and he's kind of just riding a heater right now. And I guess while he's on a heater, then I'm going to go ahead and play him, and I'm going to go ahead and play him at a pretty decent price at 30-1. You can still find out there on Jordan Spieth, as you mentioned, decent history here. And then also, if you believe, we all have to interpret what people say on the podium and take it with a grain of salt and all that in every one of the sports that we handicap. But, he goes to the podium after Augusta and says, I feel like I'm hitting it the best I've hit it in a long time. Like I feel really good about everything that's going on out there on the course. And with a guy that is known for, let's just say, to be a little bit mental out there on the course over the last few years, to hear him say that he's liking what is going on out there for the first time in a while, I think that bodes well for him as well. So yeah, Spieth didn't expect to land on Spieth, but the models push me to checking it out further, and everything checks out.
Yelling at your caddy about things like Spieth does regularly, I think I think probably a little bit of a head case. I'm curious from a betting standpoint, if he's, as you called him, your model darling, I would assume that maybe considering what the edge is, you put a little bit more on an outright. Does that mean you automatically add him like a top 5, top 10? Because I would assume those markets as well, there's value in it. So how do you break up your bets on a guy that you have really hard on?
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because we kind of try to talk about this on the podcast a little bit. We don't have each way betting in Nevada. Yeah. Rest of the country, if you live in like a Bet365 market and all, like they have like each way betting and stuff. So we don't have the advantage of that. And if you're not familiar with each way betting, it's basically you get a percentage of your bet if the guy wins, but then you also get like a percentage of that if he finishes. You can bet each way 3 ways, each way 5 ways sometimes, stuff like that. We don't have that. So I try to back up every one of my outrights with some sort of bet. If it's a shorter guy, then it's probably limited to a top 5 bet. If it's a longer guy, I'll be either a top 10 or top 20. I try to basically take advantage of the fact that only one person wins a golf tournament. You know what I mean? Like only one person wins. And so it's like everyone who comes at you, the Twitter trolls and stuff, be like, oh, you only hit 2 outrights this year. And it's like, oh, well, one person wins a golf tournament. It's kind of hard to do. I mean, so I'm actually happy that I've only hit 2 outrights so far this year. But yeah, I try to back up all the outrights with some sort of placement market stuff to make sure that I'm at least capitalizing on them playing well, even if they can't get across the finish line.
90 seconds to go. Any other bets you want to get out of your system here before we let you go?
Yeah, I'm on Jake Knapp. He is typically a guy that we like because he drives it so far, but I think his game is so well-rounded that I'm okay playing him here at this course, and seems like he's kind of course proof. So do have him the kind of mid-range, and then 2 longer shot guys. Then talk about Jordan Spieth being a model darling. Ryo Satsune was no lower than 10th in any of the versions of my model. You can find him out as long as like 75-1 out there. Another guy that is just a fairway finder. So he's going to be playing out of the fairway in a course where, again, you don't have to be long. And as long as the irons are going for him, really like Satsune. And then Sam Stevens, you can find him about 100-1 out there. No lower than 15th in the model. Any guy that's no lower than 15th, and I'm getting 100 plus to 1 on a guy like that is really, really good value. And I think he's on a kind of like the Spieth thing. He's on a heater right now. And I'm going to play the heater on some of these guys as they come off of what I consider to be a pretty good Masters and go into a course that should be a little bit better fit for them.
Pour one out for Live Golf, buddy. We appreciate it.
There it is, right there.
Also, I'm still mad at you, by the way, for saying that the Masters experience wasn't as cool as everyone has told me that it is. I'm very
you
emotional
tried.
about
Yeah,
it.
you try drinking white wine for 14 hours and see how that treats you.
I don't know. Sounds like a good time to me. You just don't do sugar. You're too skinny. Okay, Matt Brown, appreciate the time as always, buddy. Make sure you check out Long Shots wherever you get your podcast. Ready, Set, Bet on the weekends right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network as well. We got to step aside when we come back to the NBA. 2 more play-in games tonight. Who's in? Who's still got more to go?
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you've got a group chat full of opinions, now's the time to put your money where your mouth is with Cut, the social betting platform that lets you bet directly against your friends and other users on sports, politics, pop culture, even personal bets. Every bet is fully customizable and pre-funded, so nobody can flake out if they lose. Plus, you get cash back on every single bet you make. Use promo code VSiN today to get a 20% deposit bonus on that first deposit. Download Cut, that's KUTT.com. or in the App Store, and use the promo code VSiN, VSIN, to get started. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Plenty of NBA action on deck once again today after a banger of an opening night to the postseason with the 2 play-in games we saw yesterday. Blazers overcome a late double-digit deficit to upset the Suns 114-110. Total goes over there. We talked at length about the Hornets win over the Heat in overtime 127-126 despite trailing late in both the fourth quarter and overtime. Heat, though, do cover the number, and the action continues tonight with another Amazon Prime doubleheader. Magic Sixers, Warriors against your Clippers on deck coming up tonight, and hopefully no more technical difficulties in crunch time from Amazon Prime, eh?
So I thought it was just me for a second, and then the screen's just black, but my interface is still working, and I'm like, wait a minute. And then the technical difficulties popped up at just the perfect time, too. Now, it lasted longer for some than others, which I didn't realize that. Our colleague, Zach Cohen, was texting me that it was still out at one point when it had returned for me. So either way, pretty funny. At least we didn't miss anything huge. We missed a LaMelo layup, but outside of that,
it's the very end of the game.
Oh, sure. You can't really have it happen. And by the way, if you go back and watch, he actually might have traveled on that layup, so it was kind of a big one. But either way, we got it back in time. I was going to get pissed if it just came back and it was like, it's over. And you're like, wait a minute, and he won.
Exactly. So same thing, though. I thought maybe it was just our TV because we have internet issues at our house sometimes. And so I do I X out of it, I get back into the app, and then it was still technical difficulties. And I was like, oh, no, this is just a streaming service issue. Don't love that, especially, my husband very well, and he is – and I feel terrible for him that he is a diehard Hornets and Panthers fan, so it's been a lot of bad times for a long time. Panthers finally make the playoffs this year. Hornets obviously trying to do the same for the first time in a decade. So he's losing his mind, screaming up and down, yelling at the television screen, you can't bleep and do this to me right now. But we get through it nonetheless. Hopefully it doesn't extend into today. Which one of these games do you want to dive into first?
Let's go Orlando and Philly.
All right, let's do it. What is the latest from your perspective? I know you follow all of the insiders on Joel Embiid with the abdomen injury. Last I checked, unlikely.
Unlikely. No, he's not playing. I mean, I know they're trying to sorry, I got distracted.
They're trying to slow roll it.
I'm also maybe responding to emails.
Save that for commercial breaks.
It's important. It's important. It has to do with the network. So I apologize, or overlords. It does have to do with our network. No, I think that when you look at this, first off, I don't know why there's this thought that Embiid could play today. He's not. He's going to miss, I think, maybe 1 or 2 games should they even move on. But I like Orlando here. I'll just say that outright. Took them +2, and I think they're going to be able to win this game. As much as I don't like Orlando as a team, they are relatively healthy and intact coming into this. I do think that the 76ers do need Joel Embiid. And the upside of Orlando defensively, I think, is enough in a game like this, in a one-off, that they're going to be able to grab a victory and move on here. So I think that this should be moving in the direction of Orlando. When we saw this open, and it was floating around that 2 range, 2.5, depending on where you looked at some of the numbers, thought it was a little much just considering, and by the way, some spots actually went up to 2.5, so it opened 1.5, got up to 2.5. I think that maybe you can make the case that home court is just really strong. If you go back to last year, teams in the playoffs, Stormy, average net rating for teams at home was about a +6. So it was pretty strong when you were able to play at home a season ago. And in the postseason, generally it gets a little bit stronger. But either way, I just feel like I'll fall for it for a brief second and think that the 76ers are going to be missing Embiid's presence on offense and defensively too. And then that's going to be enough for an Orlando team that does hate everybody on the right. They all hate each other. There was a report yesterday that regardless of the result in the postseason, Jamal Mosley's going to get fired. To which I ever responded to Senator Guy Kelly. I was like, go get him, guys. Like, how are you supposed to even care about this, knowing that your head coach is on the way out and potentially a guy like Paolo Banchero is maybe forcing that issue? But when you look at this team defensively, they're floated around the 70th percentile when you have Bane, when you have Wagner, and when you have Banchero out on the floor. And I think in a game like this, where you might get it slowed down, I think that that's enough for them to at least get a win and move on today.
There is still 1-2 available out there. FanDuel, I see 1.5s everywhere else pretty much across the board from that standpoint. Talking NBA play-in, JVT, in addition to hosting this wonderful show, also chimes in on Hardwood Handicappers once a week with Zach Cohen. One of our great NBA betting analysts here had an awesome NBA regular season trying to push it forward into the playoffs here. Your beloved Clippers. Can they get it done tonight, laying 5.5? The market has moved in their favor against Golden State.
Yes. On paper, yes. They should be able to get this done. The problem is, do you actually trust that they're going to be able to do it? That is another question. And here's the thing. If you like the Clippers, ship sailed a little bit, no pun intended, given the logo. It opened 3.5 at some spots and got up to 4.5 and now 5.5 pretty quickly. So I think that we're now accurately priced to where this should be. Again, if we're accurately accounting for home court, then you're probably expecting that this number at 3.5 should be a little bit higher, and we get to the correction here. So we're probably priced where we should. I would say, and I know our guy Noops is going to be on this as well, do you like this game under? There's still some 221s out there, but it's starting to move in that direction, and I think that's a play to make here. Look, the Warriors are very, very reliant on Curry to generate any sort of offense, and this Clippers team is a pretty solid defensive group. They've got a good wing defender in Kawhi Leonard. They've got Chris Dunn, who can defend in the backcourt as well. They're not absent of any sort of defensive presence, and I think this is going to be a pretty slow game too as well in terms of pace and tempo. I know the last two games that we saw last night both went over the total, but I think that was just a sign of the two games. I mean, we knew, first off, that game went to overtime between the Hornets and the Heat, but the second part was, about the volatility of the three-point shooting, the pace at which the Heat play with, and then that Suns game, I mean, you just got off to a rip-roaring start from a shooting perspective to start the game, and it gets you over the number. I don't think that is representative of what we're going to see in the postseason as a whole and in these playoffs. And again, this one specifically, Orlando and Philly, at the very least, Stormy, if you're on one of these teams that's going to lose this game, you have another bite at the apple.
Yeah. Here,
this is win or go home. So this is where you start to walk the ball up. You probably start to slow down a little bit. I mean, even at one point, I think the Trailblazers gave up a 24-6 run to the Suns at one point when they gave up the lead last night. So that got really stagnant at some point yesterday. And I think you'll see this here a little bit today too. So do still like under 220.5, but also think that the Clippers are capable of covering 5.5. It's just, I think it's priced right.
So with this being win or go home, obviously the Clippers need to win this and then win again. What do you think of that matchup? Do they get in your opinion, if they get past Golden State today?
I mean, I think that they can. I have this these play on them to make the playoffs at 2-1, so I'm hoping that they do. You hear the trepidation in my voice. You hear me pausing.
Is this fan pause or is
of course. I mean, it's fandom, or it's just, hey, do you have eyeballs and have you watched the Clippers in high leverage games? I look back at just about on Friday, actually, before we left. On Friday, they had a big game against the Portland Trailblazers. Win that game and get inside the 8 seed, so you don't have to play in the elimination game, and you have 2 cracks at it. What did they do, Stormy? They no-showed. They didn't win the game. They were awful against the Portland Trailblazers. Go back to last year, Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets. You have done a great job. In fact, in that series, you probably should have been up 3-1. You should be able to beat the Denver Nuggets, but you allow the tip-in by Aaron Gordon. But this is it. You just show up in Game 7 and you play the Nuggets as well as you can, as you have throughout the series. What did they do in Game 7 last year, Stormy? They completely no-showed, got blown out, didn't even care about the game. We have seen this team do it time and again. So despite that, I can rattle off that Darius Garland and Kawhi Leonard, when they're on the floor together, the offensive rating is 131.7, and their defensive ratings in the 88th percentile, and they're so good. But at the end of the day, you've got to have the gumption, if you will, to show up in big spots. And under Ty Lue, this team has notoriously come up short in these situations. And I just don't know if I have it in me to trust that they're going to be able to do that. Okay.
Yesterday at the end of the show for our best bets of the day, you added a couple series bets. For anyone who missed it yesterday, Nuggets Timberwolves over 5.5 games, -135. Knicks on the spread for the series as well, laying 1.5 games, -104. As you've gone through, is there anything else you've either thought about dipping your toe in, placed a wager on overnight, anything info-wise that caught your attention?
No, but I do have something for you here.
Okay.
Let me list this really quickly. Projection for next round, on Friday. Charlotte -2.5 at Philly, Charlotte -1.5 at Orlando. What do you think?
I think the Hornets get in.
They're short favorites in both of them.
I feel like the game yesterday was kind of that, as you discussed about the Clippers, right? The high leverage situations they've struggled in. Charlotte has as well. We talked about that a lot this week. For them to be able to get that win yesterday and consistently, even on a really off shooting day from 2 of their best shooters, to find a way. I think I like either one of those numbers. I think they would get it done.
Yeah, I think that and I also think they're going to get bet. I mean, the market really likes Charlotte.
So it's almost like dive into the hypotheticals now.
Yeah. And we'll see it. And that's just, my thought was it was going to be pick against Orlando and 1.5 against Philly. But those numbers were from an odds maker that I was texting yesterday. So
76ers without Embiid. I just don't have any interest.
Yeah. I mean, they have the upside.
I understand your bet on Orlando for that reason and more.
Yeah. So I just want to throw that out there. But for these series, I'll sit back and wait still. I want to see what these other series prices are going to be once we finally get them set. I mean, I will say San Antonio and Portland as we'll have that maybe a little bit later. But I think Portland can be a little plucky in that series.
Well, as you mentioned, coming up top of the hour, Noops Christensen is going to join the program of FTN Network. We will get his breakdown of the play-in games tonight and some series prices he's intrigued by. But when we come back, excited to have Chad Reuter join the program, NFL draft researcher, analyst with NFL Media, talk through some of these more intriguing markets with the NFL draft just 8 days away.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The NFL draft is 8 days away as we welcome you back here to Money Moves. Sportsbooks hate to book it because it's very information-based. That said, I feel like year after year they're getting better at it. Adjustments are being made faster and more accurately to help us stay on top of it all. Very excited to welcome Chad Reuter to the program via the Progressive Guest Line, NFL draft researcher and analyst with NFL Media. You can follow him on X as well at Chad_Reuter, Reuter. And we might as well start at the top because I think a huge conversation piece in this draft comes at the quarterback position. Hang it up. We know Fernando Mendoza is going to go number 1 overall, but will there be another quarterback that slides into the first round? Ty Simpson, a big conversation topic. Do you think we see 2, or is Fernando the one to go, Chad?
I think it would behoove the Jets to pick Ty Simpson in the middle of the first round, just so they avoid any competition for him late in the round or early in round 2. I think he's got a chance to be a very good starter in the league. Had some inconsistency this year, like a lot of first-year starters, but I think he will be the second one picked off the board in round 1.
Do you think do future drafts ever impact how a team, especially with assets like the Jets, might handle this draft? And what I mean by that is we obviously know that next year's draft on paper looks like it's going to be loaded with a lot of guys. Would the Jets just say, screw it, we'll just go with what we've got here, acquire other assets, and hope that next year we can get one of these guys that's going to be in the first round?
Well, they could do that, but I think the problem is you don't know if you're going to be in position to get one of those guys. And whether it's this year or next year, there's always somebody willing to trade ahead of you to get the guy that you want. And also, I think most teams, we can kind of say, oh, maybe you wait till next year. But remember, this time last year, Drew Aller from Penn State was going to be a first-round pick. Garrett Nussmeier was talked about being a first-round pick. So we really don't know. And I think the competitive nature of players and general managers is like they want to start winning today. They don't want to wait till next year. So I think it's going to be difficult for somebody to say wait till next year with all the uncertainty surrounding that. And you're not sure if you're even going to be in position to get one of the guys you want.
If it's not the Jets in the first round, would this ever elongated saga with Aaron Rodgers affect how the Steelers would impact their draft? And would they go quarterback, or another team that could take him, Simpson, that is, in the first round?
Potentially. My guess is that I'm from Wisconsin, so I lived with the Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, will he, won't he, sagas for many years. My guess is that Rodgers will end up signing with Pittsburgh again, play for McCarthy. That's just what's going to happen. I could see them passing on Simpson and going more for a Carson back, maybe in round 3 or something like that. I think they can play a little more for the long game, in my opinion. But my guess is Rodgers is going to be there, and then they'll take a future passer, Nussmeier, maybe in round 3, maybe Drew Aller in round 4. I think they're hosting Aller soon, if not today. So I think that's the way the Steelers will go.
Your latest mock draft that I saw posted April 3rd had Arvell Reese going number 2 overall to the aforementioned Jets. David Bailey, dating back to last week, has really picked up a lot of steam to be that pick at 2. He's an odds-on favorite now. How do you see the Jets approaching that pick?
Well, I think Reese will be the better overall player, both against the run and as a pass rusher. So I'm going to maintain that. It could play out very much like Travon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson a few years ago, where you have the maybe more potential than production guy going first. But Reese was plenty productive. And frankly, when you have a bunch of pros on your team, you're not going to rack up 15 sacks and 100 tackles because other guys are getting those stats. And Bailey had a good team around him too. Don't get me wrong. But my guess is that Reese is going to be that pick. certainly Bailey has been ultra productive at Stanford and with the revamped Texas Tech defense. But I think Reese's overall athleticism, toughness against the run makes him the number 2 pick.
So obviously, and we have your top 5 selections here in your latest mock draft, and David Bailey going 4th overall to the Tennessee Titans, and then you have Ruben Bain sliding down to number 9. What's the difference between those two? I know that obviously you would have Bain behind Bailey, but in league circles, is there a big gap between them? Because it feels like in a lot of different mock drafts, you can kind of see them interchange depending on who's got the mock.
Yeah, I think Bain's I like Bailey's overall ability to get past. Bain is more of a not necessarily with the edge with speed. And I think if you're a team that's really looking for speed, you're going to want Bailey first. Bailey's got better length too, and that does make a difference for a lot of teams. And I think Bain, he's got the off-field stuff now as well as the lack of measurables in some games where he just wasn't much of a factor. I think that will drop him into the 8 to 12 range. And Kansas City doesn't care about measurables. They're willing to take guys that have had some off-field issues. I think it makes a lot of sense for a team like the Chiefs to take him at 9.
Talking NFL draft with Chad Reuter of NFL Media here on the Money Moves Progressive Guest Line. What do you think ultimately happens with Jeremiah Love? Where does he go? Is he ultimately a top 5 pick as the market would suggest?
Yes, I think he is definitely a top 5 pick, probably a top 4 pick. The Cardinals could surprise people and end up taking him at 3, and then the Titans probably looking at him at 4. And if the Giants, if he's there at 5 for the Giants and they start thinking about Saquon Barkley like they want him, they're making a huge mistake. So I'm very surprised if he makes that out of the top 5.
In general, how deep is this wide receiver class for the first round? Number for that is set at 5.5, and it's pretty much a pick, so go either way. But how deep do you think this wide receiver class goes in the first round?
I'm sorry, I did not hear your question very well, so I don't want to make up an answer. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm sorry. I'll try it again. Wide receivers, how many would you expect in the first round? How deep do you think this class is?
I believe there'll be 5 or 6. I think there is a really solid – I think there won't be top 10. My guess is that Cardinal Tate does not go in the top 10. He does not have the athletic profile of one. He's an excellent receiver. He's the top receiver. But he's really more like a CeeDee Lamb kind of athletic build. And I think he'll end up in like 11 to Miami, maybe 12 to Dallas if he's still on the board. So, but after that, you've got a bunch of guys that are going to be really solid pros. And I think they're going to fill up the last 2/3 of the draft, 5 or 6 of them. And second round, too, is going to have a bunch of them. So it's a pretty solid receiver class overall.
Is there a name in general in this year's draft in terms of like first round pick wise that maybe people aren't talking about as much that you think could go higher than we expect? I feel like each and every year that we're watching the draft, there's somebody who goes in a place that we don't expect.
Yeah. I have a 7-round mock coming out tomorrow on NFL.com, Thursday. Check it out. And my surprise first round pick this year is Eli Stowers, the tight end / receiver from Vanderbilt. I think a team like the Patriots would love to have him. Even a team like Dallas may look at him as a slot receiver more than a tight end. So don't be surprised if that guy ends up a first-round pick, even though there hasn't been a lot of talk about it.
Chad, awesome stuff. Appreciate it. We will definitely make sure we check out the latest mock coming out this week. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Chad Reuter, everybody. Again, make sure you check out all of the work, as he said, at NFL.com, NFL Media, doing a great job as a draft researcher and analyst. Did want to put some numbers to a lot of what Chad was talking about there. To go back to the quarterbacks real quickly, JVT, Ty Simpson to go to the Jets, plus 245 is that number. The Cardinals are your favorite at plus 105. Then it's the Jets, the Rams at plus 425. And then the Steelers, who you brought up, 9-1. The over 1.5 quarterbacks at minus 120. We've talked about that movement and how much it has shifted from more than a $2 price just over the weekend to what we saw on Monday when we came back. Arvell Reese also to go number 2, plus 120. David Bailey out to minus 160 right now to be the number 2 pick.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that is going to be the case, that they've differentiated themselves to the point where we feel pretty solid about 1 and 2 and maybe even 3. And then outside of that, what you're going to do and how it's going to fall. Tennessee seems to be one of those teams, too, where everything kind of changes in terms of the predictions. A lot of people think Love, and then if you get this, where maybe it's Bailey instead, then that changes a lot of the way that I think this could go, and obviously where Love is going to end up too.
You brought up the wide receivers prop. That number is at 7.5. He said he thought there could be 5 or 6.
Yeah, 7. I'm looking at 5.5 for wide receivers drafted in the first round over on DraftKings. Where are you looking right now?
That's where I was looking this morning.
Okay, I mean, then maybe it changed. Did it change that much? Because unless my thing's off, 5.5.
Oh.
Minus 115 both ways.
Yeah,
for that one.
I thought it was minus 7.5, and it was like minus 260.
Maybe it's been changed and for those who are wondering, Reuter does have 5 going in the first round. As he mentioned, 5 or 6 could be there. It seems like 5.5 is the safe and solid number with where you're going to hang that up as to where these guys could go. Casey Concepcion was the last wide receiver taken in the first round.
You know what? I was looking at the wrong one. Offensive lineman, 7.5. Wide receivers, 5.5.
Yeah, over now minus 190 on the offensive lineman. You said it was minus 2 something?
Minus 260.
So you got a little bit of play on the under there.
A little bit there. And again, the surprise pick, Eli Stowers, Vanderbilt. Okay, we got to step aside here when we come back. We've talked about it a few times. Excited to have Noops Christensen join the program as well. Get back into all of the NBA play-in action and see if he has some early leans and likes with the series that are already set for the first round.